Hey again, welcome back to Daily Dose of Anime Recaps. In this video, we'll be covering episodes 1 to 6 of the series Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. Basically, it's a story about how a pitiful teenager gets sold to a demon by his own parents. The demon proves to be quite generous though, and surprisingly adopts a teenager as his own grandson. Said boy then traverses the perilous netherworld, joins the local demonic school, creates new friends, and also unleashes his hidden potential as a human being. Well, if that's a story you're fascinated by, be sure to keep watching and consume this video as a whole. In the initial scene, we witness the 14-year-old Iruma toiling hard at some tuna-catching boat to earn a living. Ever since a young boy, the boy's good-for-nothing parents had him doing all the hard work to support the family. Despite all that, Iruma continues to be diligent at work and never complains. One day, though, even his well of patience runs dry after learning how his money-grubber parents sold him off to a creepy demon in return for lots of money. Said demon, whose name is Sullivan, soon comes looking for Iruma at his workplace and kidnaps the kid all the way back to the netherworld. Poor Iruma is frightened out of his wits and accepts his fate of being Sullivan's main course for dinner tonight. Upon reaching his villa, Sullivan surprisingly reveals how he has no such intention and rather simply wishes to adopt Iruma as his grandson. Such an absurd and out-of-the-blue request has Iruma tongue-tied for a while. Despite being unwilling, the shy and timid Iruma ends up accepting Sullivan's offer. After all, the kid is a total pushover, and so refusing other people's pretty please requests is far beyond his current capabilities. Have to admit, being a grandson to a filthy rich demon has its own perks. Soon Iruma ends up with his own luxurious room, whereas in the past he would be lucky to be able to sleep under a proper roof. Later on, in Iruma's presence, Sullivan's maid questions his eccentric decision to adopt a human child when there's plenty of demon orphans available within reach. Sullivan acts in a mysterious fashion though, not revealing his true intent and simply claiming how time will prove Iruma as a worthy grandson. In the morning, Sullivan has his newly adopted grandchild enrolled at the famous demon school of Babyls for pursuing formal education. Meanwhile, Iruma is scared witless after learning how he will end up as human barbecue so long as his fellow classmates learn his true identity. Thankfully though, Sullivan pours a bucket of some unknown potion onto him to help mask his scent as a human. Doing so will surely make it more difficult for others to sniff out Iruma's true identity. At the entrance ceremony, Sullivan introduces himself as the director in charge of the school to all freshman students. Immediately afterwards, he reveals Iruma's identity as his grandchild and therefore names him as the honor student. Such an introduction results with Iruma's plan to stay low-key being thrown out the window, no doubt. Even worse, as the honor student this year, Iruma has to put up with giving a sermon as well. The kid's face loses all traces of color at the thought of ranting BS in front of such a massive audience. He's relieved once Sullivan throws him a cheat slip, unaware how it's forbidden spell instead of an introduction or something. As a result, the hall soon becomes dead silent, since chanting a forbidden spell in a public sermon is risky indeed. Contrary to expectations, the dumbfounded audience soon becomes amazed by Iruma's courage. Teacher reveals how the spell Iruma just chanted has the effect of preventing an accidental fall throughout the entire day. Such a lousy effect is truly not worth the effort considering all the risks involved with chanting a forbidden spell. After the ceremony, the A student among the freshmen named Asmodeus challenges Iruma for a duel. As it happens, Asmodeus is fuming after having his limelight stolen by Iruma. The duel begins soon afterwards, with Asmodeus launching a flurry of fireball effects towards his opponent. Once again, the audience is left speechless, since Iruma dodges every single one of Asmodeus's attacks for 20 straight minutes. Turns out, thanks to his pitiful background, the kid has an overwhelming crisis evasion ability. That said, although Iruma is useless when it comes to attack power, his impenetrable defense still makes him kind of invincible on the battlefield. Later on, Iruma grabs Asmodeus from behind while trying to prevent him from accidentally hurting a female student as collateral damage. Both become off balance and are about to trip when the spell from earlier takes effect, allowing Iruma to defeat Asmodeus with a perfect German suplex. Not landing a single hit plus receiving a severe head concussion makes Asmodeus thoroughly convinced of Iruma's Iruma's ability. As a result, the class's ace student ends up swearing his fealty to Iruma, unknowingly accepting a human kid as his master. After all, demons follow the law of the jungle, and so the weak must obey the strong ones. On the following day, Sullivan proves himself as the epitome of being a helicopter parent. The old guy just can't help going overboard and buying Iruma a ton of new items each day, and also stalking his grandson every moment. Later during class, a steel guy named Kalego introduces himself as their new teacher. The first lesson is for all students to summon their own familiars, which is the term used for pet monsters here. Asmodeus happens to summon a terrific gorgon snake that can breathe fire as his familiar. Meanwhile, Kalego is dying to nitpick on Iruma and expel him at the slightest of errors. His reasoning is quite simple. For one, Iruma gave a creepy sermon at the entrance ceremony and later also had an unauthorized duel on his first day at school. What's more, the quiet and peace-loving Kalego abhors Iruma's cheerful and noisy grandpa Sullivan. Unfortunately, the summoning ritual, when performed by humans, is used to summon demons instead of monsters as their slave pets. Furthermore, since the summoning talisman has Kalego's seal on it, the moody teacher is surely out of luck today. Soon everybody's jaw drops to the ground once Iruma summons the mighty Kalego himself as his familiar. Kalego instantly goes into denial mode and attempts to bully Iruma into nullifying the contract and freeing him ASAP. The impudent guy is soon struck by divine thunder as punishment for lacking in obedience. Sullivan later reveals how Kalego is stuck with being a familiar for at least a year. Forcefully attempting to cancel the contract will result in instant death. As for Iruma, his notoriety spreads even further after this incident. After all, far as others are concerned, there had never been a precedent of a demon summoning another demon as a familiar. Meanwhile, poor Kalego becomes bedridden at the thought of staying as a lowly familiar for a year. Later on, Iruma goes for a stroll together with Asmodeus. Both end up bumping into Clara, a rambunctious and utterly stupid girl who just can't stop blabbering nonsense 24/7. Asmodeus is of the mind to slip away since the weirdo definitely spells trouble. Unfortunately, being an absolute pushover, Iruma just can't refuse any pretty please requests from other people. As a result, the poor kid is soon forced to imitate a tree and dance and finally become Clara's pet dog. Meanwhile, Asmodeus stands there infuriated at witnessing his lord being humiliated in such a way. Regrettably, he too ends up becoming Clara's horse not long after Iruma's incentive. Their play is interrupted by a fellow student named Yochin and his two hooligan friends. Turns out, Clara's ancestral ability allows her to infinitely create new items out of her pockets, so long as she's seen them before. That said, Yochin promises to play with Clara every now and then. In reality, though, he and his nasty friends are just there to manipulate her while getting some free snacks as a bonus. Clara doesn't mind though, at least until she accidentally manages to eavesdrop on the three. Yochin admits how it's such a bother putting up with Clara's stupidity. He claims how Iruma keeps her around only for the purpose of convenience and would dump her sooner or later. Poor girl is scared witless at the thought of being ditched by her newly created friend. As a result, she starts showering Iruma with an endless supply of treats. In such a way, the lonesome girl wishes to make up for her stupidity in continuing being friends with Iruma. Iruma accurately guesses her intention and therefore declines to accept the treats. Of course, everybody loves being treated to free lunches once in a while. However, the human kid is still thoroughly against taking Clara for granted and manipulating her in such a greedy and nasty way. Finally, he himself offers to play with Clara no matter whether she bribes him with free food or not. This literally has Clara fly off to cloud nine, since not once had anyone requested to play with her out of their own free will. For her, having a friend who's there not to extort her, but out of genuine desire to play with her and enjoy her company is a cause worthy of celebration indeed. Just then, the spoiled Yochin comes looking for free snacks again to fill the pit of his stomach. Instead of complying, Clara simply slams a drink machine in his face, telling him to buy stuff on his own. Later at lunchtime, Yochin orders 50-plus servings in Iruma's stead as revenge for having his free food factory stolen. His prank doesn't work though, as Iruma soon devours every last bit of the meal, leaving everybody flabbergasted. The guy then continues asking for seconds until even the chef falls unconscious out of exhaustion. The reason for such excessive binge eating is in fact quite simple. Iruma just wishes to eat a ton before the rest discover his true identity and eat him instead. The commotion catches Kalego's attention, who becomes annoyed at seeing Iruma's bothersome face again. Not willing to ruin his mood, Kalego is about to leave soon when the daring Clara grabs him from behind. Apparently, the girl loves to entertain death quite often, but is stupid enough to incite pity and escape unharmed. Anyways, Clara questions whether the rumors about Kalego being Iruma's familiar are true or not. Then, before Kalego can refute her, she hands over a talisman to Iruma, asking him to clap his hands. Doing so forces Kalego to transform into his demonic form, which resembles a pigeon or some sort of owl. Just then, the kitchen guard goes berserk at having the talisman being stolen and used without permission. Iruma and his party instantly slip away to avoid being targeted by the guard's wrath. Back at home, Iruma seems kind of content with his new life at Babyls school, especially since his two best friends Asmodeus and Clara are there to accompany him and have fun together with him throughout the day. Next day, Sullivan enrolls Iruma in the Misfits class to honor his grandson's wish of staying low-key. As the name suggests, all other troublemakers and misfits are gathered in this very class. With all of the ruckus they create daily, Iruma will surely find it easier to stay under the radar. Problem is, putting up with such troublemakers is easier said than done. Poor Iruma almost forfeits his life after only stepping inside the class for the first time ever, all cause of a mere prank from his troublesome classmates. Thankfully though, the kid survives while relying on his overwhelming crisis evasion ability. Just then, another fellow student named Sabnok appears. The brawny dude fell victim to the same foul prank as well. Unlike Iruma though, Sabnok chose not to dodge a single attack and later seemed carefree, even with a dozen weapons embedded in his body. The mighty dude then starts declaring his wish to become the next Demon King. As it happens, the demon monarch died quite a few centuries ago, and the throne has been vacant ever since. Such an opportunity is too good to be missed for an ambitious dude such as Sabnok, and so he hellish training regimens simply to sit on the Demon King's throne one day. Afterwards, Iruma becomes kind of shy and embarrassed once Asmodeus and Clara introduce themselves as his best friends. Fortunately, most other demons are unaware of what the term friend even means, and so they don't think much of it anyway. Kalego arrives next and announces a flying test to assess his students' capabilities and ranks once they get past the intro session. Right off the bat, Kalego warns all test takers not to take the shortcut since the pathway there is home to a fearsome giant monster, one who's not fond of visitors and usually kills any intruders on a whim. The test begins soon, with all demonic students pushing out their wings and exploding into full speed. Meanwhile, Iruma continues to hesitate since being a human means that, unlike his fellow demons, he has no wings and therefore enjoys no such privileges as flight. Kalego loses his patience though and pushes the cowering Iruma off the cliff. The guy remains unaware how he just sent his own student to his death, though chances are Kalego wouldn't have cared for Iruma's safety even if he knew the truth. Most probably, he would end up celebrating the death of an annoying student, plus also attaining back his freedom. Thankfully enough, Iruma's fall is prevented by a bunch of gigantic crows who catch him out of boredom. Soon he gets abandoned and ends up falling into a nest of another giant birdie. Fearful for his life, Iruma's worries are washed away as soon as he notices the bird's injuries. Then, while examining the birdie's wound, Iruma accidentally spills a drop of his own blood on top of the wound. This miraculously ends up curing the wound in a magical and mysterious manner. Apparently, being a human, Iruma is not as powerless in the netherworld as he thinks of himself to be. Anyways, the bird becomes quite affectionate towards his savior and even offers Iruma a free ride to his destination. Some distance away, Asmodeus stands there frustrated since Clara hitched a free ride on his back since the start and refuses to let go no matter what. What's even worse, he gets to deal with all kinds of troublesome foes while also having to put up with Clara's nonstop BS. Finally, we witness Sabnok being continuously thrown around like a ragdoll by a fearsome giant. Turns out the headstrong guy thought it would be beneath him to avoid taking the shortcut due to the fear of the giant. That line of thought resulted in his current perilous situation. This wraps up the episode's end, and we're left pondering several mysteries. Will his two best friends, Asmodeus and Clara, continue to stay by his side and support him, or would they prefer to have Iruma stake that day, same as others? We'll surely discover the answers within the next episodes of Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. And in case you're a subscriber with notifications enabled, you'll know as well soon enough.